In 2012 and 2013, a consortium of European researchers conducted research on the manner in which law is applied to regulate a safe educational environment. In many countries, students are required to be at school under compulsory attendance rules. A stable school setting enhances a safe learning environment. Violence and associated school safety raise legal questions about constitutional rights, due process, liability, privacy, and concerning records and discipline. School leaders develop proactively clear and consistent policies to promote safe educational environments and have to publish, implement, and maintain these safety policies. School leaders have a duty to provide reasonable supervision of students and maintain the safety of school grounds. If these measures are appropriate, the risks of violence as well as its effects at school will be reduced. School officials, teachers, and/or the school or governing boards face potential liability for civil damages for students harmed in the violent acts of students or non-students. This can be the case when educators fail to supervise specific areas at school where prior instances of violence occurred, when they fail to warn students about pre-existing dangers or fail to adhere to their school safety plans. Leaders in educational institutions must ensure that students and parents are informed about the provisions of school conduct codes and safety plans. As part of procedures related to student enrollment, school officials might ask students and their parents to sign forms stating that they have read their school conduct code. In order to be valid, the aim of school policies and the methods used should be legitimate and reasonable, the standard that school safety and violence prevention policies and plans should meet. School leaders are required to show the same degree of care and supervision that reasonably prudent parents would employ under the circumstances. School officials must balance students' access to education, autonomy, and privacy with their duty to maintain schools as safe and orderly learning environments. Since educational officials are involved in significant record keeping, including student school records, medical, disciplinary records, and crime reports, they should take reasonable steps to ensure that confidentiality is maintained. Privacy issues should be taken into consideration in counseling matters within schools and between schools, social and health organizations, and law enforcement agencies. School officials may disclose information with legitimate interests in the behavior of their students. This includes students in their classes or who may soon be entering their classes. Reporting student information to other schools or agencies is a delicate matter. Generally, school officials who disclose student education records to colleagues in other schools must make reasonable attempts to notify the parent or the student prior to releasing the information. Generally, the law restricts access to student records by non-school individuals or organizations without prior written consent from the parents, with exceptions for possession of drugs or weapons by students on school grounds and behaviors that reach the level of destruction of property or assault of fellow students or school personnel. The release of disciplinary information for such matters as disrespect for teachers or staff, bullying, behavioral or academic history, personal interests, extracurricular activity, or similar background information on a student will require prior notification to and consent of the student's parents before it can be released to a third party. School policies should employ standard sets of reasonable security measures. Threats of harm to another person may take a variety of forms of threats, including those that are direct, indirect, veiled, conditional. Students' speech rights may be limited where they substantially disrupt classwork by causing material or substantial disruptions. School safety efforts may include searches using metal detectors, cameras, sniff dogs. Policies may also include dress code requirements. Searches must be justified at their inceptions, conducted in manners reasonably related in scope to the circumstances, and may not invade students' rights more than necessary to maintain order in schools. School staff may frisk students and proceed on reasonable suspicion. Teachers and staff should be careful to document their preliminary observations, sources of information, investigate evidence, and verify the reliability of the information given by others that leads to reasonable grounds for searches. Since school governing bodies own lockers, locker searches are permissible as a function of the orderly administration of schools. Still, locker searches should not extend to students' private articles within lockers that are not in plain view unless they consent freely before searches occur. Since strip search represents serious invasions of privacy, officials must thoroughly explain that their actions are in accord with the pre-existing policy and have a witness present. The investigatory or search activities of police in a school must be objectively reasonable under the totality of the circumstances, based on an independent assessment of specific and identifiable facts. Metal detector searches are permissible security measures when school policies governing such searches are in place and when notice, such as posted signs, make it clear that such searches are to be conducted in schools. Pre-established procedures should regulate the use of other metal detecting methods to inspect students for metallic objects. Photographing public areas such as buses, hallways, classrooms, and cafeterias is permissible if done in compliance with legislation. Where students have reasonable expectation of privacy in areas being filmed, such as locker rooms, the use of a camera is normally unacceptable. School policies should bear a reasonable relationship to their educational mission while maintaining a safe educational environment. School officials have the responsibility to ensure the safety of teachers and students and deal with undisciplined youth who may potentially threaten the safety of the others in attendance. Since school leaders have great flexibility in determining and establishing disciplinary methods, they may respond to threats of violence made by students and suspend or expel students for infractions of school rules provided they respect fundamental rights such as due process, equal protection, free speech, and freedom from discrimination based on race, religion, gender, disability, and/or national origin. Disciplinary methods employed by school officials include detentions, timeout or isolation rooms, alternative education programs, denial of participation in school activities, verbal reprimands, suspensions, and/or expulsions. A student may be disciplined for on-campus and for off-campus conduct if the school can show that the student's actions have a direct and immediate effect on school discipline and/or the safety of students and staff. Reasons for suspension of expulsion of students include students found with a weapon and any other inherently dangerous objects on school grounds, threats of violence from students, including assaults not involving the use of weapons. School officials must follow procedural requirements if students are to be suspended for a substantial period of time or expelled from a school. Generally, expulsion is warranted only in cases of repeated or extreme misconduct, attacking peers or teachers, drug use, and weapons possession or use. Procedural protection includes notice to the students and parents of the reasons and evidence, a fair and impartial hearing, right to be represented by a counsel, reasonable time to prepare, the opportunity to review evidence, the opportunity to examine or present witnesses, a record of the proceedings, decisions based on substantial evidence. Generally, notice and a hearing must precede removals from school, except when students present imminent threats to the safety of themselves or others, and in the case of conduct that seriously disrupts the academic atmosphere of schools and/or endangers peers, teachers, or staff, or damages property. In emergency situations, a two-step approach may be employed. First, immediately impose a temporary suspension or expulsion. Second, enforce a permanent expulsion after the proper notice and hearing provided as soon as practicable. School policies should be aimed at awakening the child respect for the law and for the dignity and integrity of all the members of the school community. True justice is less about the effort to exact punishment and retribution, but about working to maintain safe and peaceful educational environments.